Hi Delvers. So in this lesson, we'll be diving a bit more into the select statement. So I'm just going to get right into it. So last week, I know we created a database called work, but this week we would work more with the database world. So I'm just going to put in select everything and from what should we select from? So let's say we select from country. Just see what we have in country. And just then don't forget you need to end that with that. I'm just going to run that quickly. So it comes up with a list of country, the country code, the name of the country, the continent, the region, and many more details. It's quite a large data, to be fair. And population, GNP, GNPO, the local name, the government form, the head of state, capital, and many more things. All right. So, as I said before, the select statement actually returns colons based on what we have specified. So now we said we specified select. I said this star means everything. So select everything from country. Let's say, for example, I'm not interested in selecting everything. I just want to select few colons. Say, for example, I want to select the continent. I'm just going to copy the field there. Say select the continent. I'm sorry about that. So I'm select the continent. Then I'll select the independent day. So I'm select the population. So that doesn't come up. Should actually, that's population. So that's like three things I want to select. I'm just gonna run that code again. Then it returns just the continent, the independence year, and the population. Now you see some null values here, but I mean that's way down the study. But there's a way we also deal with null values when it comes to SQL. There's a way to deal with them, but when it comes to data cleaning and data and EDA, you have to be more careful dealing with them. But that's going to be something we'll consider much later in our lesson. So we have continents, the dependency here, and the population here. Sometimes it depends on you. I personally try to do this because I just feel like it makes it a bit more easier to understand, especially when you're working with a group of people where people would take your documents or your code and also work on your code. It's important that you ensure you write your code in a way that makes it very easy to understand, that even if anybody just picks it up, they can understand what they're writing and they can understand what you have written before. So it's important that you format your code very well. Now you can arrange it this way. You can also arrange it separately. So say, for example, I want the population to come first, then I want the continent as the second. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna do it again. I'm just gonna copy the field there. So I want the continent as the second, and I want the dependent year as the third. I'm just gonna take that up, and I'm just gonna load that. Obviously I know that won't work. So that won't work. And why is that so? Now the last column that you're filtering on shouldn't have the comma. The comma is only to separate columns between themselves, if that makes sense. So but the last column shouldn't have that, and that's why you have that cross there. You're saying there's an error in the previous line, so there's an error in line 3. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to load that all over again. And there it is. So that's basically how we use the select statement to filter on columns in our database. Now, very important that I think I need to also emphasize is when it comes to dealing with the select statement, we also run calculations. Say, for example, I want to add, so we have this population, but say, for example, those populations are wrong, and I want to add extra populations to that. So I can just say population plus 3,000. And to make this easier, I think I'm just going to copy this again. I'm going to paste that down there. I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna copy that again, paste that down there. I'm gonna drop this down a bit. I'll drag that so we can have some space. All right, so I've just written the same code, but let me say this is the previous one we've written and this is the new one. So this is just the normal one and that's the new one. So if I run this query, you have two different results. You have the population. Say for example, now the initial population is 103000, but now the new population after I've added 3000 is now 106000. So you can just run simple calculations like that when it comes to the select statement. But when we're about to run more complex calculations, there's like a guide rule, or there's a rule of thumb that we run calculations with. Now just going to comment that quickly. We call that PEMDAS, and that's just a rule that guides our calculations so that we don't make mistakes when running calculations. So that stands for, it's just more like what you have or what you call BODMAS in mathematics. So that's PEMDAS, and stands for parentheses and exponent, the multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It means this is the order with which SQL follows when it runs calculations. Say for example, I've just added I just say I want to do a multiplication. Say I want to do so 33,000 by 2. I'm just gonna load that again. I'm just gonna get rid of this now. I think to serve its purpose. So I'm just gonna load that again. And then don't worry about this. I've commented that already, so it's not going to come up in our querying. Neither will it affect our query. Now, it's important that when you write your queries or when you write your code, your SQL code, it's important. I strongly believe in the usage of of notes. And so it's important that you because when other people are like running through your scripts, running through the things you've written, it's important to add notes here and there so they understand exactly what you're saying, they understand exactly what you're just. Say for example, I want to write more about this. I'm just saying this is just to make you understand the order of operation. Stop. So say for example, I assume that's like a more detailed note, and I just put that up there. So it means anybody getting to this query or this code would obviously read that note and will understand what I'm trying to do below. So it's important that when you work as a data analyst, you must, for me, basically I say you must harness the power of commenting. You understand? You must comment on things so that it's clear, it's self-explanatory. So when another person jumps on your code, they understand what you're doing and it doesn't feel like it's a lost cause. You understand? So now, following through the calculations now, we've just said select population and all of the other things. We said plus 3,000 times 2. Now, the order with which this would work would be, now it's going to do this first because that's the exponent. It's going to do that first. It's going to multiply that first before it adds whatever result that is before it adds it to the population. Initially the population, okay, just to see that more clearly. I know I deleted it initially, but yeah, but that's fine. Just gonna get rid of that. I'm just gonna load it up all over again. So the initial population is, now that's the new one, is 103000. Now, but now we've added these to it, so I'm gonna say it's gonna do this first, which would be 6,000. Then to add 6,000 to the population, which would be, I'm adding 6,000 to that, which would be 10900, which is what we have here. So for example, I don't want you to do that. I want to add this first before I multiply. So definitely that's where the parentheses come in. So I can do that and cover that again in parentheses. So it's going to add 3,000 of the population first before multiplying by 2, if that makes sense. So if I run that again now, you see we have a different result. Obviously, it's obvious again, the result is entirely different. So it's important that you know PEMDAS because it gives you an idea of how queries run or how calculations, the order with which calculations run in MySQL. I think one more thing that I want to emphasize here is when you check this, I'm just going to rerun that. So when you check this output, you find that there are a couple of I won't call them duplicates, but there are a couple of recurring continents. So you have North America there, you have under North America there, you have Europe there, you have under Europe there, you have Asia there, you have under Asia there. So say for example, I'm not interested in multiple. I'm not interested in these different continents. I just want distinct continents. So I just want to see one North America, one Asia. So what I can do is I can just say select. I can say select distinct, which is there. Select distinct continents and the dependence. If I load that up now, so you can see now what is brought up now. It's important. Now, why is this happening? Now, these continents are in respect to the year of independence. So, say for example, you have Europe there, but now I'm just going to take this here. Now, you have Europe there, but that is a country in Europe that gained its independence in 1912. And you have another country in Europe that gained its independence in 1278. So even though it's selecting distinct, these two countries, obviously, that have these continents, have different year of independence. So it will still be classed as different things. So for example, I remove the independence here, for example, and I load up that again. What I should have should just be the 7 continents. Because now, in the continent itself, not in respect to any other role, the continent itself is, so the distinct continent itself is what will come up. Because now I just want the continent and I'm not comparing the continent with every other rows in the table. I'm only comparing the distinct figures or the distinct values within continents. Now, if I had an extra thing there, say I had population, for example, don't forget there are different countries in those continents. Hence, why the populations will be different. So I had the populations to that, for example, and I loaded that up. Now you have, again, different things. So you have North America, another North America, because these two things are distinct. So what this is doing now is selecting distinct based on these two columns. So it's interpreting these two columns, then selecting distinct values. So North America of that population and North America of that population are two distinct rows, hence why we have that in our column, sorry, in our result or in our output, if that makes sense. So that is how we use select distinct. Now, select distinct is very, very important, especially when it comes to data cleanings, removing duplicates is very, very important. But as we dive more into the lesson and we get into probably data cleaning or something like that, you would see a proper use case of the select distance. I think that will be all on this. So in our next lesson, I think we'll go into the from and the where statement. All right. Do have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.